It was Julian Bream's wonderful playing on the lute that inspired me to look for a lute and to teach myself how to play it back in 1971. I remember I was studying classical guitar and my guitar teacher gave me some arrangements of Renaissance lute pieces. And I thought, well, why am I playing lute pieces on the guitar? What was a lute and what did it sound like? And so I went to the record shop and found Julian Bream's latest LP, Lute Music from the Royal Courts of Europe. And I put the needle on and I was thunderstruck by the sound. The first chord, I just immediately thought, I have to play this instrument and I have to play this music. So Julian was my inspiration. He had such a fantastic musical insight, intuition, instinct, ability to look at a piece of music and to understand what it needed to bring it to life. And I think that really the entire lute revival of the last 55 years or so was due to Julian and his efforts to revive the great lute music of the 16th and early 17th century. I have a very humorous story to tell about Julian. I had met him on many occasions after concerts, and we had spoken several times, and there was an invitation that he had to play broken consort music with the Julian Bream consort in the London proms, and he did not feel like he had time or interest to really do that. That's a very special repertoire requiring special techniques. And so he asked me if I would like to take over the concert and to play with some of his former colleagues from the Julian Bream consort. And so I was delighted to do that, because we not only had the opportunity to play some Elizabethan broken consort music, but also Julian's own arrangements of the dances from his opera Gloriana, which he arranged for broken consort. Very, very beautiful pieces, and I'd always loved his recording. And when he sent me the music and I got to actually play the lute parts that he devised, it was very, very exciting. In June of 1990, I was recording broken consort music with my own ensemble, the Musicians of Swan Alley, in Somerset, in the west of England, in Ford Abbey, which was a 14th century Cistercian abbey turned into a 17th century stately home. And in the late 80s, early 90s, it became a very popular venue for recordings, because the music room was all stone, having been part of this Cistercian abbey. It was very resonant, and it was way out in the country, so it was extremely quiet. And the arrangements were that you would stay in a room in this stately home and eat dinner with the family, the owners, and they ate amazing food and had incredible wine. And we finished the recording, and my wife and I had a few free days and had a rental car, and thought we would just drive from Somerset back towards London, where we needed to be a few days later. And we got part way to London, around Shaftesbury, and I saw a sign for the village where I knew Julian lived. And I said to my wife, let's just go and see if he's home. He's probably on the road, but let's go see if he's there. So we drove into the village. I couldn't remember where the house was. And we saw a woman at the side of the road who was trimming her hedges. And so I rolled down the window to speak to her. And she immediately looked at me and said, "Paul Odette, what are you doing here?" And it was the wife of Jose Romanillos, the guitar maker, who made so many guitars for Julian Bream and lived just over the hill from Julian. She said, "We're celebrating Jose's birthday. Will you come in and have a drink with us, and then we can ring Julian, and you can go and see him if he's home." So we had a very nice visit with Jose Romanillos. And they tried ringing Julian a couple of times, but the phone was always busy. And Jose said that's because Julian's practicing. When he practices, he takes the phone off the hook. And that's the only time it's busy. So we had our drink with Jose and drove down to Julian's house and parked the car outside the gate and walked in. And Julian was standing in the window, struggling to put a new string on his lute. And he saw us and waved and signaled for us to come in and said, "Oh, well, you'll stay for a cup of tea." And we said, oh, that's very kind. Yes, thank you very much. So we had tea with Julian and his then girlfriend, June. And at a certain point, partway through the tea, Julian said, oh, you'll stay for a bit of the old beef. It was Sunday, so they were doing roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. And we said, oh, that's very kind. Thank you very much. We didn't really have any plans. We thought we would find some quaint bed and breakfast someplace out in the country for the night, but we weren't in a hurry. So we thought dinner invitation with Julian Bream sounded like a good idea. So Julian opened the first bottle of what became many, 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 many bottles of, I think, second growth Bordeaux. It was alternating between Pichon Longueville and Léoville Las Casses from about 1961. We were drinking unbelievable wine. And after a couple of glasses of wine, the food appeared. And we had a wonderful dinner, and Julian was in fine form, telling one story after another after another. And I didn't realize until partway through dinner that every time I took a sip of wine, Julian was filling up the glass. And that's why my glass was always filled all the way through. And after a while, I received a sharp kick to the shin. And I knew that that was my wife saying, can you drive the car in your state now? And I shook my head to indicate no, but I wasn't worried about it because I thought, okay, we can sleep in the car, that's not a problem. And Julian went on telling more and more stories and pouring more and more wine. And at a certain point, I had had more alcohol than I've ever consumed in my life. And I thought, I've got to take this glass and finish it, because I was always taught by my mother, you have to finish everything on your plate and in your glass, or you insult the host. Well, I no sooner drank down towards the bottom, but Julian filled it back up again. And when you're drinking wine of this quality, it's very expensive and you don't want to waste it. So I kept drinking more, and the kicks to my shin became more and more intense. And I, again, nodded. There was no way that I was going to even try to step foot in a motorized vehicle at this point. Julian unceremoniously gathered up all the wine glasses, took them away, some of them mostly filled with this precious liquid, and replaced them with brandy snifters, which he filled very far to the top with a Poire Williams from Switzerland, which I saw a few years later in a duty-free shop at a frightening price. It was superb Poire Williams, the best I've ever had. But he really filled up these brandy snifters. So that was I don't know, a quarter of a bottle of Poire Williams. And Julian continued telling story after story after story. And I tried the same trick. I thought, okay, I'll drink as much as I can, and he filled it back up again. So at a certain point, very late, I think 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:30, he stood up and he said, all right, up the stairs, turn left at the top of the stairs, last door on the right, see you in the morning. Actually, I won't see you at first because I have to go practice early in the morning the old orange juice concerto, which was his name for the Rodrigo Concerto de Aranjuez, because he had a new recording contract to record that piece with Simon Rattle the next week. And he said, I really have to practice the old orange juice concerto. So, okay, I don't remember anything after my head hitting the pillow, as I really have never consumed so much alcohol in my life. And my wife and I woke up, it was fairly late, it was at 9:30 or something like that, and I thought, oh no, they've already gotten up and have gone off shopping, and we won't be able to say goodbye. So we tiptoed down the stairs. There was not a sound anywhere, and then I peeked in the kitchen and I saw that nothing had been touched from the night before. And a few minutes later, June came down the stairs and said, "Julian hasn't moved since his head hit the pillow." And then, sure enough, 15 minutes later, Julian bounded down the stairs and started telling stories with the same energy and enthusiasm as all the stories the night before, got out his lute and wanted me to play on his lute from Lord Herbert of Cherbury's lute book, where he had just gotten a beautiful copy of the manuscript. And then he said, you'll stay for a bit of lunch. And Crystal and I thought, no, that's really a little bit too much. We'd better leave. So he said, no, we have to get back to London. And he said, but I must show you my rose garden, because he was an avid gardener and had a prize set of rose gardens. So we had a tour of the rose garden, and then he tried to lure us into more discussions about music, and we then finally decided we'd better escape, or we would never escape. So that's my story of the Sunday that Julian Bream kidnapped me, and it was certainly one of the most memorable days of my life.